Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today, especially at this very early hour. There's plenty of coffee, there's breakfast, so please avail yourselves of all the things we have here at Journal House. And welcome back to Journal House if you've been before. Welcome if it's your first time. It's great to see you all. And I am delighted today that we have such an esteemed panel to talk about something that's very pressing for a lot of Middle Eastern economies and other hydrocarbon economies. What do you do if you're one of those economies and you're looking to diversify your country away from oil in a future that will be focused on sustainability and renewables? So I'm delighted today that we have Sheikh Al-Thani, who is CEO of IPA Qatar. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Ignacio Galán, Executive Chairman of the Iberdrola Group, one of the leaders in renewables worldwide, and James Zhan, the Director of Investment and Enterprise at UNCTAD. Thanks, gents, so much for being here. So, Ali, I'm going to start with you. So obviously we're here to talk about a diversifying oil economy. There are obviously a lot of efforts by agencies across the Middle East, so I would love you to start by telling us, characterize what it is your agency does and where your focus is for Qatar.
Yep. Well, thank you, and I'm happy to be here at Journal House. You know, us in the Investment Promotion Agency, our main mandate is to attract businesses to Qatar. We also help them grow, so we do a lot of business development activities, aftercare work. We play a very big policy advisory role, so we help promote policies and also best practices to the government to implement. And also we have a very strong incentive kind of function where we actually help businesses via a partnership model to expand and build their businesses in Qatar. That's what we do. And you know, I mean, back to your question around diversification, you know, part of our mandate is solely to attract investments that are both sustainable and that also help Qatar diversify away from hydrocarbons. Currently, I mean, when you look at the Qatar economy, a little more than a third is hydrocarbon based in terms of our GDP. So, you know, and it's a bit of a misnomer because that shifts based on oil prices and the current commodity cycles. But we actually see very positive growth. So, you know, for example, I mean, the state-owned enterprises that generally operate in the non-hydrocarbon sector have a combined revenue of around $30 billion. We can see, you know, companies like, you know, Qatar National Bank, which now have you know, greater than the market cap of both Credit Suisse and UBS combined, and the largest bank in the Middle East. So that really was part of our growth journey in establishing these national champions to help drive diversification. But also, I mean, foreign direct investment is going to play an integral role going forward. And this is where, you know, we come in. We help them both establish, we help them guide through the regulatory framework in the country. And also, we help provide services even post-establishment. And what we see is around 70% of investment, of foreign direct investment, actually is existing businesses expanding their presence, rather than actually attracting new businesses to Qatar. And you know, well, I mean, when you talk about the regional kind of outlook, you know, we don't look at it really kind of in a zero-sum way. I mean, it's not really a competition, because the growth of regional economies actually helps Qatar, right? We currently see value chains emerging across the Middle East, which is very positive. We see a higher focus on developing the economy, and also, you know, currently with the current commodity super cycle, a very young demographic in terms of the population. We see greater migration, intra-MENA migration to the GCC, and that's generally, you know, Qatar in terms of talent attractiveness ranks first within the MENA region, which is really great, and that will continue to drive diversification and the transition into the knowledge economy.
Okay, 2 quick follows. That the 1/3 figure you mentioned, which obviously fluctuates, has there been progress on that already? Has that figure come down already?
Yeah, I mean, actually it's going to be a challenge with the current super cycle,
Right.
just maintaining that ratio. So, I mean, for us, if we can sustain non-hydrocarbon GDP growth to be, equal, if not higher than the hydrocarbon growth, that for us is kind of the basis for a successful outcome. Because currently with there's also an expansion undergoing in the hydrocarbon sector with the North Field expansion, with also downstream in terms of chemicals and so on. And that, I mean, keeping pace with that is a challenge, and that's actually where our mandate kind of sits, because we need to maintain that growth. I mean, especially growth in non-hydrocarbon GDP.
Okay, let's stay with you for a second. In terms of sectors from which you're looking for that diversification, which are the important sectors, both for growth but for this sort of sustainable growth as well, for that sort of focus on sustainability?
Yeah. So in terms of sustainability, actually we've looked at the investment opportunities in the sustainability space. We valued it at around $70 billion up till 2035. This is a very diverse range of investment sectors, from developing the circular economy and waste management to reducing the intensity of our hydrocarbon facilities, because we set a target of reducing emissions by 35%, and that's up in the next 15 years or so. But just doing that, I mean, there's going to be a number of investment opportunities. Increasing efficiency, clean tech, and clean energy are going to be areas of investment. A good example as well is with Ignacio and Iberdrola. I mean, currently, there's a R&D facility in Qatar that has been expanded via a partnership with us in the Investment Promotion Agency, and they're doing excellent work around energy efficiency, around renewable energy technology. And we see, that this is one project, but we see a huge growth, I mean, in terms of FDI projects. And when we look at last year, also over the past 3 years, there was a 70% compound annual growth rate, which is incredible for Qatar. It was the fastest growing in terms of the FDI projects in the region.
Yeah.
Around $20 billion in inflows last year alone. And so that is extremely significant. And we think, I mean, the model, I mean, going forward would be based around talent attraction and retention. And that would be the basis towards diversifying into the knowledge economy. Obviously, Qatar has really good, homegrown talent, great universities, but also talent from the MENA region. And we see companies like Iberdrola, which are based in Qatar, obviously hiring talent locally, but also we see increase of high-skilled talent migration from the MENA region into Qatar. And obviously, this is a phenomenon, I think, that also is true of the wider GCC region.
Fantastic. Okay, I want to come back to education and Iberdrola's specific role in this as well, but I want to pan out for a second, James, and ask you, from your perspective at UNCTAD, what do you see as the big emerging sectors in the Middle Eastern region? Which sectors are attracting most foreign investment?
I think it's already answered the question by Al-Thani, Sheikh Al-Thani. In fact, these sustainability-driven imperative is coming in a big way. What is coming fairly soon will be this global standards on sustainability reporting and disclosure. That is International Sustainability Standard Board. They are going to issue the process of global standards, S1 on ESG, S2 on climate disclosure. So with these two, by the time May, when it's issued, and that will be for many countries and jurisdictions, will be mandatory. So, and they are taking the two tracks approach. One is directed market participation, the other is through the governments and institutions, and it will be backed up by IOSCO, International Organization of Security Commission. So all these will drive the firms to move to the sustainable development sectors, and these have been highlighted already, like renewable energy sector for sure, clean energy, and we talk about sustainable infrastructure. There's a lot of things to do in those areas. So I think, and the hydropower, and interestingly, hydropower hydrogen is now happening even in Africa. If we see the largest kind of deals or investment intentions announced recently in Egypt, in Namibia. So you can see the kind of foreign investors getting into that. And then we have a brilliant example of investing in these areas.
Okay, thank you. Ignacio, tell us about the role of private enterprise as we see these hydrocarbon economies shift. And I know you're very active in Qatar. Can you talk about the role of a company such as Iberdrola in this shift?
Well, I think the goal of decarbonizing is a global goal. So I think it is something which we cannot make anybody alone. I think it needs partnership. When you see now the discussion of IRA in America, if that is already an intent of competing, it's an intent of decarbonizing. So I think what we have to make it is to be everybody one beside another, no one against another. So that's why I think for many years, I think in our company since I joined the company, so 22 years ago, it looks to me yesterday. We have invested, so you said that you've been born. I was almost working at that time. And I think we decide to transform the traditional utility generating with osmosis, with coal and with traditional sources, and with a grid very inefficient, and to transform in a different thing. And I think we have invested something like $150 billion in the period. We closed all our coal power plant we have known for many years. We have invested heavily in renewables, so I think we are the largest in Europe, the third largest in the United States. Even they were not at that time wind turbines. I think we were forced to create our wind turbines. We created a company, was Gamesa, now it's integrated in Siemens, to make our own wind turbines for already supplying to ourselves. So we transform our hydroelectric power plant, because when the people talk about the storage, the storage exists. We transform the hydroelectric power plant in reversible for being able to pump water to the upper dam and to generate when it's needed. So all those things was done. So, but that's why I think is that was made already by the private sector. Our company has been always private owned. So. But now is even more needed than ever. So I think that in this moment, so the needs of stable, predictable regulation in the countries is crucial. The competition of everybody has this ambition. Most countries have this ambition. Then they have to we make one way or another one. We need to transform. I think coal, I think, is all the estimates. The coal is going to diminish the percentage in the mix of power generation, which is be partially substituted by gas. Gas is a transitory transition energy, which is going to stand for many years still. I think we have some gas as well. But because it's emitting 3 times less than coal, which I think that is very important. So automatically you move from one to another one, your emission remains by 2/3. So, but I think that is needed. So I think the investment needed worldwide is in the range of $5 trillion in the next from now to 2030. So Europe only, we need already investment of 1.5 trillion. It's not a question one or another, it's a question one and another. So that's why the partnerships are crucial. We have partnership with many people. So I think we partnership with Shell for making offshore in Scotland. We have partnership with BP for making already electrify their fuel station, the petrol station, and to put already charges in many countries. We have partnership with, yesterday announced with Norges Bank. We have partnership, of course, with our friends of Qatar. They are already our main shareholders in Iberdrola in Spain, and they are the second shareholders in our company in the United States as well. And why? Because we are the largest in renewable, that's what you're saying. But not only that, I think we have this center of in Doha, in which we are already developing solutions for our grid of our renewables. So we are working hard in artificial intelligence because everybody talk about, all we talk about one side of the equation, which is generation, production. But we talk very little about demand. And the ways how to manage the demand is going to be crucial. And for that, we need to digitalize the grid. And we need already to make a lot of today's technologies for already understanding what is happening is going to happen. So that's why artificial intelligence, the managing of the grid is crucial. They can avoid a lot of problems. You can manage in much efficient manner the energy. You can avoid already shortage and excess of that one. So all these things, and many of those things is done in Doha. So I'm very pleased that the thing we are making in Doha, I think is already applied to our grids in United States, among others, in Brazil or in Spain, but I think in United States will sound very well. So, and I think that is the partnership we are making. So we are convinced that in the next few years, so the amount of money needed in the sector is such that all the effort will be not enough for achieving that one. So I think my point now, and I think we have already made those days a manifesto, trying to advert that because of this energy crisis, a punctual situation, but we have not to lose the vision where we like to go. If we want to go is 2050, we had already achieved the target of the temperature we have already fixed, or will be in real trouble. And we need to start making now. It's not an excuse because of this transitory situation, which I hope is going to finish this war, this invasion of Ukraine by the Russians will finish, and the thing will normalize, I think, but we need to continue accelerating that one. And all together, we will have better result than everybody from one side. So that's why private sector is crucial, public sector is crucial. So the policies of accelerating permits, the facilitating the investment, the stability and predictability of the rules, the keeping the rule of law in the different countries, so it's crucial. I think the investment in the sector is standing for 40, 50, 60 years. The rules cannot be changed just because of a transitory situation, because the credibility and the interest of the investor will be not. So I think my friend and my investor, they will not already provide to me the funds for making the investment in countries where they're changing the rules just because of a transitory thing. So that is very important.
Excellent, thank you. Well, as Ignacio says, partnerships, 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 and we will only get there if we work together. Can you tell us about the role of partnerships in your work, and maybe give us some examples of others you're working with? Clearly a thriving partnership there with Iberdrola.
Yeah. Partnerships is key, especially when it comes to investing in our region. When we speak to investors, what they're looking for is a long-term partner, and one that can be predictable and also can sustain this partnership well into the future. There are different models of doing this. One is similar to what we did with Iberdrola, where we offer our services and we help them in terms of expanding and establishing a presence. Another is also in a form of a PPP kind of process, where there could be grants in terms of land allocation, and other types of government support for businesses to establish. This also is going to be key when it comes to sustainability, and we work very closely with Qatar Energy in the Tawteen program, the localization program, which actually looks at different areas on how to increase their sustainability profile, reducing the carbon intensity of their hydrocarbon facilities. We recently signed an agreement with a company called Green Boom to develop the first biodegradable absorbent facility that's going to really help reduce the intensity of some of the hydrocarbon facilities. Another project, that we're looking very closely on is because we are currently sequestering around 6 million tons of carbon per year. That would go up to around 11 million tons pretty soon. And there's a big question on usability of carbon as an input. And if you can really resolve for that because it's really expensive now to capture carbon and store it,
Yeah.
and very little incentives for companies to actually do that. Qatar, we're doing it because we know our customers, especially our customers going to the future, they're going to be looking at gas plus carbon sequestration at the source, which is possibly the cleanest fossil fuels. It's 70% cleaner than coal, but also how do we solve for that remaining 30%?
Right.
And get it to the cleanest kind of fossil fuel as possible, and that actually there's investment opportunities in doing that, and so via partnership both with our local stakeholders and foreign investors, we can seek to do that. Future, the younger generation. Sorry, Ignacio. You were a member of the WEF when I was born, but the next generation, they're going to have a different set of priorities, and we actually look forward to that and to what their needs would be going to the future. Part of which is developing clean tech. We have this partnership with Iberdrola. We have another one with Rolls-Royce, which is a really, much larger in scale, and obviously a number of campuses being developed, and an intention to actually fund and develop the next 10 unicorns in the clean tech space. So that is going on. But also, we feel that a partnership model, especially one with a long-term vision, really can lead to a better outcome in terms of sustainability.
Excellent, thank you. James, I want to come back to you. Something Ignacio said, which is like we can't pause on this deal making to sort of get things to where we need to be in sustainability terms. But in a recent World Investment Report, I think it's fair to say the forecast is looking fairly gloomy. Can you tell us, is there opportunity within the current gloom, this sort of malaise that we find ourselves in, from numerous fronts? Where are the opportunities?
Yeah, gloomy. First, about gloominess. When we talk about gloomy in the investment prospect, particularly for 2023, we're talking about foreign direct investment. In terms of financing, sustainability-themed finance, we've been seeing the boom. Sustainability-themed finance consists of equity funds, green bonds, social bonds. Altogether, it's reached $5.3 trillion last year. For green bonds, for example, it's already over $1 trillion. So that shows it was 62% of increase over 83% of increase in the previous year. I'm talking about 2020 over 2021 and 21 to 22.
Yeah.
So that's kind of significant. And then about 85% were in the renewable sector. But of course, there's an issue, challenge of getting the investment into the sectors like climate adaptation. For the time being, it's more mitigation related. Also, when we look at the green sectors. Interestingly, we also see the policy dimension. For example, last year at the G20, we were asked to prepare a kind of compendium of G20 investment policies, encouraging investment into energy sector, particularly renewable energy efficiency and clean energy. And for that, we have seen that overwhelming majority of the G20 countries intensify their efforts to put incentives to attract investment, including cross-border investment into this sector. So that's the positive side we see as continuing. But in terms of foreign direct investment in the energy sector, interestingly, last year, since the war, we saw a bit of kind of a slowdown of the investment in the renewables and increased in fossil fuels investment. That's the current situation. But that's understandable as we see what's happening now. Longer term wise, I think the trends will be reversed again when we see the policies is getting intensified further for sustainable investment. For the foreign direct investment, this year, when we see the gloominess, it's because of the global economy is in a very difficult situation. We all know the three highs and the three lows. The low GDP growth rate, the slowdown of global trade, and the gross fixed capital formation is reduced significantly, and we forecast that. And the three highs, we know the interest rates, the debt level, and all these the three highs, three lows will discourage investment, particularly cross-border. And we see the geopolitical situation. Having said that, during the bad situation, if it's getting worse, that may trigger a kind of wave of cross-border merger acquisitions towards the end of this year or beginning of next year. That's what happened at the end of 2020, around 2021, when there was a kind of a V-shaped recovery of global FDI, and it's cross-merger acquisition driven. We see the restructuring. We also saw the kind of replenishment of the capital after the disruption of global value chain. So for this year, it's gloomy. It may continue until the beginning of next year, or it may recover. And it will be M&A driven and sustainability driven too. That we will see the situation. The opportunities lie still in the economies we call the blue and the green, blue economy, the green economy, and also circular economy. I think one of you asked earlier, I was thinking this emerging sectors, the sustainability infrastructure upgrading will be a kind of big way. We have seen the kind of wave of massive infrastructure building over the past 2 decades because of the rapid growth, particularly in emerging market. And infrastructure has kind of a cycle. You need to maintain or upgrading, and to do it in a sustainable way, that's a lot of upstream and downstream efforts for that. So I think that's one of the growing areas that we may wish to pay attention to.
Super interesting. And a sweet spot for Iberdrola, I think, right, in upgrading infrastructure with your long history of renewables. But Ignacio, let me ask you, obviously there's been a lot of progress made. You guys have done tremendous work, as have others, on sort of getting us along that transition. But what do you see as the challenges ahead for a renewables leader such as yourselves?
So I just mentioned, I think the problem of the global warming remains, or the problem of the increase of temperature, the problem of the situation of the world, what we have already seen with these storms, with this drought, with these floods, I think the problem remains and it's been accelerated. So, and the point is to put in mind of everybody that nothing has already changed, just because we have already very exceptional circumstances. And that makes this the commitment of everybody to move in the same direction. I can tell you, our company, we have already presented a plan to the financial community a couple of months ago in November, with an investment, the largest investment of our history up to 2025, $47 billion investing in the next 3 years. In what? In more and better grids, an expansion of the grid. I think if we would like to electrify the economy, we need already reliable grid. I think the electricity is not coming directly from the power plant into our homes. If we would like to charge our cars, we need already chargers, but the chargers require already a cable connected that one. If we would like to put already cooling and heating in our homes and to change for our boilers, we need already power there. So that one, which is going to be addressed, something like 25 billion. And renewables what? In all countries. Mainly one of the main first destination is offshore. So in Europe, we are already seeing problems or too late, too slow in the permitting, I think, in this, but I think we can already make a large power plant in offshore. We are in this moment building a big one in France. It's almost 3 billion investment. We are building a couple of them in Germany, and we are another one in operation. We are already one more building in Britain, a couple of them already in operation in this moment. We have a huge project in Scotland, including floating offshore for the next few years, together with Shell. And we are in the United States. The first offshore wind farm, which is going to be built in the state, is being built for ourselves in the coast of Massachusetts. That requires a lot of money. But our commitment is acceleration. And there are a good thing now that you mentioned, by the way, which is the easy access to the green financing. So I think it's a tremendous demand for financing already green projects. So probably in this moment, 80 or 90% of all our financing is already made with green bonds. We are the largest issuer of green bonds worldwide. And I think that helps as well, because a part of being cheaper is already help to you to commit to use this money in the right direction. So I think the environment is there. My main concern, and I would like to insist again, is agility for administrative permitting process. I've been already, anytime I talk about that in Brussels, they joke with me saying, here is coming Mr. Permit. So because I've been for years already denouncing there is no sense that it takes 7 years a permit for a construction or something which is 12 months. So, and that has to be changed. That's in mind to be changed. But we need to be more agile on that one. And the second one is I insist on that one, stability, predictability, rule of law. So many of the decisions we are taking now is going to remind in times what our grandchildren will be managing the companies. So it's not something that we can do today for enjoying tomorrow. It's something we are doing today for very, very, very long time. I think I remember the first conversation I had already with the former Prime Minister of Qatar, when they joined already, Iberdrola, said, we are not investing for today. We are not investing for ourselves. We are not investing even for our son. We are investing for the son of our grandson. That we would like to know very well the sectors, very well the company we would like to put them on money, because we are doing things for a long, long time. So that's why stability, predictability is crucial.
Excellent, thank you. We're getting short of time, but I did say I wanted to talk about talent, and I just want to ask you about that. In terms of talent attraction and education, as you go about your work and you think strategically about the future and about preparing for the future generations, how are you skilling up for this?
Yep. I mean, talent is going to be really, or development of talent is going to be important going to the future. I mean, if you look at Qatar's kind of growth story, we're starting from the development of the hydrocarbon sector, and then developing the infrastructure of the country, which kind of the World Cup was a goalpost there. And now, I mean, this third phase, as we call it, would be centered around the development of human capital, because really going into the transition towards an oil economy is going to be centered around human capital. Part of that is developing local talent, and that, I mean, there was a lot of investment happening in the education sector, so obviously the education city, all the campuses there, but also, I mean, developing now with the private sector means to upskill workers, both attracting talent regionally and upskilling them in Qatar, as well as developing the local talent base. An example of this kind of partnership is one with Microsoft that seeks to reskill around 50,000 workers for them to be ready for the digital age. And that kind of private-public partnership, when it comes to developing such centers of excellence or upskilling centers as well, is a model that we're continually going to be investing in. In terms of education as well, we're increasing the throughput. So we're really looking to develop the high-tech sector, which would require an increase in terms of volume of the number of engineers that we develop and graduate domestically. But also now what we've seen in terms of regulations as well, liberalizing the ability to migrate to Qatar and to reside long-term. Part of that also comes the question of inclusivity as well. And that is going to be really the next phase in Qatar, because if we're going to develop a vibrant domestic talent pool, we're going to think about, how do we become more inclusive, and also how can we retain them long term, and that's going to be part of it. So there is, as part of the 2030 vision, really, human capital sits at the center of that, and that's going to be where the focus will be going into the future.
Excellent. Well, gents, we're out of time, I'm afraid. I hope you'll stick around for a few minutes if there are questions once we leave the stage. But thank you so much, James, Ignacio, Sheikh Ali. It's a fantastic conversation. Good luck with this work. And thank you so much for joining us at Journal House today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.